Today we're going to talk about energy. You have already learned about how the amount of heat energy matter has determines what state that matter will be in. You have also learned that some things, like plasmas, give off light as energy. But what is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. In science, the word work means any activity or movement, not just paid human labor. There are many types of energy. Two broad categories are kinetic and potential energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of movement. When you pedal your bike, it propels you forward faster than if you were walking. That is because the energy you apply to the pedals transfers to the wheels, which causes them to move. Potential energy is the storing of energy prior to movement. Think of what happens when you knock a glass of milk off of the table. Before you touched the glass, it didn't move. Once you did, it fell to the floor, most likely shattered, and spilled milk everywhere. The glass had the potential to fall over and make a huge mess, but needed you to touch it for it to actually do so. In other words, it needed to have its potential energy be converted into kinetic energy. Two examples of energy are heat, also called thermal energy, and light, also called radiant energy. We have already talked about thermal energy. Heat, after all, is what turns a solid into a liquid or a liquid into a gas. Remember that cold is not energy. Cold is just the absence of heat energy. Heat, like all energy, can move and transfer. When you accidentally burn yourself taking cookies out of the oven, the heat energy from the oven transfers to your skin. Running the burn under tap water transfers the heat energy to the water and thus away from your skin. Radiant energy can most easily be seen as the light that radiates off of the sun. Light is more than just the bright visible light that we see. Both X-rays and sound waves are actually a type of light energy too. Remember that light is not matter. It does not have volume or mass. It is actually made of tiny packets of energy called photons. Both light and heat are types of kinetic energy. They are energies of movement. Another type of kinetic energy is electrical energy. You have definitely witnessed electricity before. You do every time you turn on the light or watch a video. You know that atoms are made up of protons and neutrons in the nucleus, and that electrons orbit the nucleus. Well, electrons can also leave atoms and exist on their own. When many electrons flow together, they make what is called a current. It is this current of electrons that is the basis for electrical energy. When you turn on a light, the current flows. The electrical energy goes into the light bulb and radiates light energy. Most lights also give off some form of heat as well. Chemical energy is a type of potential, not kinetic energy. Chemical energy is the energy that is stored in the electrons of atoms and the bonds in compounds. When a chemical reaction happens, like when two hydrogen and one oxygen make a water molecule, that chemical potential energy is converted into kinetic energy in the form of heat. Almost the entire field of chemistry is about the amount of electrons that are moving between atoms. When we talk about a chemical reaction, we are really just talking about the movement of electrons. Nuclear energy is a special case of chemical energy. This happens when the nucleus of an atom, instead of the electrons, are split off from the atom. This releases an enormous amount of energy in the form of heat. It is much harder to remove a proton or neutron from an atom than an electron. That means that protons and neutrons have a much higher potential energy. So when that potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, it is a much stronger reaction. You can also fuse two nuclei from different atoms. From the perspective of energy, though, the idea is the same. Potential energy stored in the nucleus is converted into kinetic energy in the form of heat. Gravitational energy is another type of potential energy. Remember the glass of milk from before. The reason the glass falls to the floor when you knock it off a table is gravity. You have definitely felt gravity before. You actually experience it every second of the day. Gravity is the force of the earth pulling you and everything else down towards it. Without gravity, we would all just float away into space. Not just us, though, the atmosphere would float away too. That's why we can't breathe on the moon. The moon doesn't have enough gravity to hold an atmosphere around it. The atmosphere is where the air is, and air, of course, is what holds the oxygen we breathe. Mechanical energy can be either kinetic or potential energy. When you are in a moving car, that car has mechanical energy. This is kinetic energy because the car is moving. If the car is dangling dangerously on the edge of a cliff, but not moving, then the car has potential energy. Hopefully, the force of gravity isn't enough to convert that potential energy into kinetic energy. So, to review, there are many different types of energy, but they can be broken into two different categories. Energy is the ability to do work. If the work is happening, it is a type of kinetic energy. If the work isn't happening right now, but could at any moment, it is potential energy. Heat or thermal energy, light or radiant energy, as well as electrical energy are examples of kinetic energy. Chemical and gravitational energy are examples of potential energy, and mechanical energy can be either kinetic or potential.